All right, team. Up next on the Second Chance podcast, you're going to hear from a good friend of mine, Brandon McCall. He is the owner of McCall Motivation. He's a motivational speaker, uh, an amazing person on a mission to just be that beacon of hope, um, being that bright light that our youth. He works inside of our schools, travels all over the U.S. speaking inside of our schools and today's youth. He is an amazing person with an amazing story, and I'm excited to help him amplify it. So check out this episode and let us know what you think. We'll see you on the other side. All right, group. This is big. This is one I've been excited about. Good friend of mine, someone I can say this is I consider a good friend of mine, is with me today. Second Chance podcast. He and I spoke privately multiple times about growing up, about life, about being men, about being parents, and to a passion for motivating others. And today, everyone, this guy is on fire, traveling all over the United States, dropping nothing but fire and value everywhere he goes. He's a life changer. And but he goes by Brandon McCall in person and online. You can find him there. Brandon, I appreciate you being here with me today. You are trailblazing a message that I'm excited to help amplify for you. And then I want to help just deliver this to amplify your message to the rest of the world. You're a motivational speaker now. But here's what I want everybody to know. And I'm privileged in this information. You weren't always a motivational speaker, but somewhere along the lines, life spoke to you. Tell me about Brandon McCall and how you got started.
Oh man, well first off, thank you so much for having me on. That was a great introduction. I mean, if I could clap up for that introduction, that was amazing for sure. You did leave out one thing. We are the same height. I mean, I think that's what bonds us.
I think it's that, and I've always told you I'll open up for you. So I've been working on my opening. And seeing for you whatever I can do just to ride alongside you.
There you go. That was awesome. And it's so great to be a part of the of your podcast, The Second Chance. And listen, I've had many second chances. What got me into motivational speaking, honestly, early on in life, I just had a hard time getting connected around the right people, and grew up without a father, single mom, household. My mom actually had me and my brother. My mom had 4 children, and me and all my brothers had different dads. So I never looked like anybody, in my family, type of thing. And it was really hard for me to connect. And I remember at an early age, I wanted to help people get through hard situations in their lives. We would go to church a lot, and there was a pastor on the stage, and he had a jerry curl. He had a whole bunch of money. He was helping people, and I was like, man, I want to do that one day. And it was kind of that's where the dream was born. I think I was maybe 10 or 11 years old in third grade or so, and that's where the dream was born. And from there, of course, I had some hurdles and things like that. But right around like 30 or so, I was like, hey, I think I'm gonna go for that third grade dream that I had. So, and it's been great ever since.
Yeah, and you started. We're both from the same town here, and we could be doing this in person, but this platform makes it so easy for us to connect because you're busy as well. But you started, and you shared with me before. You're working at a car dealership, and you have this passion for people, and I can't agree more. Folks have passion for people end up in dealerships and sales positions and things along those lines, but your calling was way different. And I remember one of the first conversations we had was you sharing with me just like that power of that connection. You had that one connection, and the lady was like, hey, come speak at my school. And you went over and spoke at that school and delivered that message.
So I started off after I graduated high school, barely. Uh, I started working at a car dealership because I wanted, of course, to make some money. At the time, I had already had one child and had another one on the way. I think I was 19 or 20 years old. And I started selling cars, and I did that for about 10 years, working with people, learning people's questions, what made them tick, and things like that. And then after I sold cars, I realized I was like, man, I don't want to do this. Like, this is not as fulfilling as I thought it was. Yes, I'm making great money, but I don't feel like I'm being of value. So I got out of the car sales business and I started doing after school care. I was the lead uh, uh, I can't think of the word now. Hold on, wait,
Counselor.
I was the lead. We can edit this in post. Not playing.
Yeah, a counselor, right? A counselor, instructor.
No, it was like a 21st century coordinator. I was the lead coordinator for William Fleming High School here in Roanoke.
Yep.
And I had all of these high school students from ninth to seniors who would basically come and get information and kind of get tips and tricks and enhancements and things like that on life after school. And I realized in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, this next generation needs help. Like,
Yeah.
and not just a little bit, but they just need guidance. They need encouragement. They need words. And kind of that's when I really started to make that turn, getting into public speaking. I started coaching rec football, working with local teams here in the city. And then one student, one of my players' parents came up to me and she was like, "Hey, Brandon, what you're doing is great. The way you're getting these kids fired up and things like that. Do you think you can come to our school and speak?" And I was like, yeah, sure. It's fine. I was nervous. I was so scared. Like, it was so scary, right? I went to the school and it was probably about, 400 or 500 kids there, if I'm not mistaken. And I did the speech, and the news was there. The local news was there, and they highlighted this feature of me doing this speech. I can't even remember really what I said at the time. It's kind of just going off there. I was like, hooray, and happy and stuff. And the news story, they did this speech, and then I get this cold call about 2 weeks later, and it's this gentleman named JC from this speaking corporation. He was like, "Hey, man, I saw your speech. You look great. Is there a way that you can help us finish out the school year?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And it did. I started doing speaking engagement with Teen Truth, and then from there, he's like, "Hey, man, I'm getting nothing but positive results back. Do you mind signing a contract with us and you being our best motivational speaker?" And then from there, everything kind of just took off. And I was reminded about that third grade kid that I was sitting at that church saying like, "Hey man, I want to be that guy." And it all kind of came into pass. And it's been a great 2.5 years just traveling around the country, working with students, encouraging them with my story.
So that's where you're you leave the dealership, you go all in on motivational speaking, and I speak when I speak. One of the things I lead in with about how we use our failures to help other people succeed.
Yes.
And our story, like you said, is growing up and without your dad, and we have that in common, and we've shared that. But using that, but you're also, listen, man, you're also become this beacon of hope, and you
Yes.
become this light of success, and you're able to take that and through these programs. And you're not just talking about, Brandon McCall gets on planes and he flies and rents cars and drives to what would be some underserved areas, and going in and just trying to do whatever you can do to make a difference in kids' lives.
I mean, Avondale, California. I mean, I'm going into Tucumcari, New Mexico. These places where students are really, really just seeking guidance and light, honestly. And I'm able to go there and share my story, and you would be surprised of the students, that come up and open up to me and sharing their truth with me. as I'm sharing mine with them. And it's amazing. And it really lets me know that, um, this next generation needs us. They need us to share our second chances with them, so they know that they have the hope to do this, have the same for them. Then they also can pass that baton to their next generation that comes after them.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal, is just letting all that positivity, putting all that positivity in the right place, because it becomes that thing that's passed on. And I'll say this to youth and kids sometimes when I'm talking to them, and I go, hey, this is making a difference now. What you're doing, what we're talking about, is making a difference now. But in 20 years, it's going to make a bigger difference, because you're really going to understand what I'm talking about. It's really that
It's gonna
lights.
make sense. It's
Yeah.
making a difference
Yeah.
now, but it's gonna make sense in
Yeah.
20 years.
Yeah, and I've told them, like, you're blind, because I have these moments myself, and I go, I give a lot of credit to just the way my kids are involved in athlete. My mom ran a store, and she didn't have time to take me to ball practice and all this other stuff. And if her health wouldn't have been for a man in my neighborhood who coached ball that put me in a car and drove me, I never would have played recreational sports, right? So, and I tell everyone, you're gonna find that opportunity where you're going to influence some kid's life, and this message needs to be passed on, like I'm passing it on to you, because it is. I didn't get here because I got it right. I had a lot of people that saw this opportunity to plug in with me too.
Right.
Um, what have you seen? And you and I aren't that by far apart age wise. Our kids are really close in the same age. But what have you seen? How has character changed over the years?
So, I do work with Teen Truth, and I also have my own speaking business as well, McCall Motivation, and we focus on what we call the ARC, right? ARC. And that's kind of like the new trajectory of life that we're trying to sell to students, or encourage students to take a part of. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're trying to focus on awareness, respect, and character. And we realized that a lot of students don't have the awareness of where they are in life. They think that the situations that they're going through right now will last forever. They think that the circumstances that are in their faces, or that they're facing, are definite. And we try to encourage them, like, no, 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 you need to broaden your awareness. You need to look back at the full picture. And doing that with respect will help build your character. As I travel around the country, working with thousands of students, I see that the lack of character in that we see in public is because of the lack of character that they have in private.
Yeah.
I know when we were growing up, we heard the phrase that character is what you do when nobody is around you.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm starting to see, like, oh, this is what you do when ain't nobody around. Like, this is how you feel. And what I do see it ultimately doing is breaking down our structure and our culture. We're not saying yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, yes, sir, no, sir, no more. We're not showing people just general compassion at that younger level, that teenage level. But what I believe it will happen is when these students get into the workplace, they will have that same lack of respect for their employers, for their clients, the people that they're working with. And I think I have the responsibility to pass on the things I've learned from my mother and my mentors when I was in school. And that is, have respect, be aware of where you are, and make sure you're building good character. Now, having good character does not mean perfect.
Yep. No.
That means you have the ability to admit your mistakes. That means you have the ability to go sought out a second chance. And I'm living example of that. I've had so many second chances, so,
Yeah.
but we just try to instill in students, like, hey, good character practices. And what I realize is a lot of times students feel like they're alone when they're going through these pressures. And it's mostly because they don't have the character the good characteristics around them and say, hey, I am struggling, but I'm not the only one. Let me go reach out to this person. Let me go reach out to that person. I got a text message from a friend of mine not too long ago, and he asked me about an app. He said, hey man, have you started on this app? And I said, no. He was like, hey man, don't suffer in silence. Right? But the truth is, when I'm by myself, when I'm alone, my character, when it comes to learning new things, says, hey, Brandon, don't do it. Don't even try.
Yeah.
But I don't have to suffer in silence. I have a friend who's going to go, hey, man, I got you in this area. Let's go.
Yeah.
Anything I can do to help, let's go. So that friend was you, by the way. You know that, right?
Yeah.
But that's what we're trying to build as we're traveling across the country, helping students build up their character, not just for today, but for the next 20 years. Character is a stepping stone. You're always going to be growing in that area.
You will find, and this is hopefully thousands of kids are going to hear this. And this is what I think, if you're a successful business person, mentors that I follow in business will tell you your business will be a product of the 5 influences you let in your life. Right. And I coach business, I work in that space, and I have that conversation with folks a lot. If you want to know why your marketing plans fail, it's because you get marketing advice from people who shouldn't be giving you marketing advice. Same thing holds true. What you just said is our youth and our people, our character, they're going to be a product of those 5 influences. And I tell everyone all the time is do an inventory. And it's hard for kids to be as self-aware as Jeff and Brandon is. And I think that's something that I'm trying to work hard, because when I talk to my kids, it's in one ear out the ears. It is kind of the perception that I get sometimes, but I'm always reinforcing that. Hey, let's evaluate. Hey, Dad, I'm not doing good in algebra. Guess what, man? We need to work with people that are doing well in algebra. Let's go find someone where you're trying to go, and let's work with them to get there. And our kids can do the same thing. Our youth, and there's people that are trying to help. They want to help, and sometimes is people feel awkward asking for that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and when you're in that room, you give them that hope and that light and that just that purpose that they're looking for, right? I can't echo what you said enough. Is just that power. And if you're a parent that's listening to this and you don't have it figured out, these are randoms of connection that you should have, and someone who is a positive light, and it sometimes those are hard to find, right?
And they are. And it's really if we're being honest, sometimes it's really hard to be that positive light.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I realized in my life that some role models are just playing roles.
Yep.
They'll come out and say and do one thing, but behind the scenes they're another way. And I'm very, very grateful that I have 4 children who make sure that I get away with nothing. Nothing. I'll say to my kids, hey, don't talk about people behind their backs. And then I'll get in the car and I'll start yapping a little bit. And like, hey, Dad. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. But that accountability piece is what's needed for sure.
Brandon, I started off this thing with my kids years after they got a little bit older. I realized how much that I was learning from them.
Oh, yes.
But I learned how much they were raising me and how they were holding me accountable to being that person with integrity. I've always said integrity, like you said, that moment where you're like, hey, we don't talk about people behind the back. You get in the car and then they hold you accountable. Like, no. And I've had to stop and say, hey, guys, I appreciate y'all not letting me slide. I don't let y'all slide. Don't let me slide.
Don't let me slide.
That's a big deal. And just accountability. Accountability, and my wife is a huge rule follower, and so is my son and my daughter. We skirt around, we tiptoe amongst everything. But just following, operate within those ditch lines is what I like to say. You can get over, you can kick your dirt up, but you got to come back in the lane. You got to come back in the middle.
And that's what I'm trying to be. I'm just trying to be a guardrail.
Yeah.
I don't hold you to the fire. I'm just trying to be a guardrail for you to be like, oh, hey, yeah, I can't. I'm on the edge right here. I'm on the edge right there. And what I've learned working with students, from all different parts of the country is that a lot of times they don't share because they got the wrong advice from
Yeah.
adults,
Yep.
right? The adults who would say one thing but then do another, right? Or they don't share because their truth is shut down in those tough moments, right? And I tell students all the time, hey, bro, hey, sis, I'm not here to judge. I'm here to let you know what's going to happen, though, you know? And I've been in those places too. So it's about modeling the role that you're playing, not just being a role model.
My son had a teacher, and she doesn't do. My son. I had him write a little bit of a code, right? Of just a little bit of a code of just something to follow and something that would help keep him honest to himself. And when he started backsliding in school a little bit, and we went for a meeting, they were like, well, he's doing this. I'm like, well, you just need to remind him that he's not operating within his code. And she was like, she really liked that principle, but she also taught me, they let kids make their own choices, but if you don't want to do the work, it's fine. It's up to you. It's your work to be done. We just understand it comes with consequence. So I'm seeing a lot of teachers now do a better job of teaching consequence. And,
Right.
right, you used to teach a lot of right and wrong. Now there's a little bit of just moment of consequence. Okay, let's hang on for a second, real quick, and we'll hit pause. Look, Dean, if you really are enjoying this episode, make sure you head over to Instagram, McCall, MCCALL_speaks. This Instagram, McCallmotivation.com or teamtruth.net. Those are all the ways that you can connect with Brandon. He has a life-changing message. He is just on a mission to try to help as many people in his everyday that he can. Also, you can book me. Head over to my website, www.rabason.com. You'll see a little speaker inquiry form at the top of the page, and then give me a follow. Make sure you follow along on my Instagram. I go by Jeff, RABASON, at Jeff Robinson. It's my Instagram handle. I'm always dropping some value over there for everyone, so I appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Let's get back to the episode. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'd sit down and meditate, catch my breath after 20 minutes of Brandon just dropping the fire. If you are struggling, if you are, this is a guy that you make sure you follow him. Make sure you get his social medias at the end here as we're wrapping up. But this has been just great. But one thing that is on my mind, because I think success leaves clues, and you'll hear a lot of folks say that, but I think failures do too. Brandon, in all your travels, and like we said, you get to go all over. What is there one thing that you see that's consistent in all the schools you go through and the youth that you're working with? Is there one thing that's consistent that stands out?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think the biggest thing is, especially with teenagers and young adults, students are struggling with pressures. The pressures to fit in, the pressures to get the good grades, the pressures to wear the right clothes, relationship pressures. Some students will come and talk to me about their parents, going through divorces, or some students growing up without their fathers, and they just don't know how to deal. They don't know how to work through. They're living with their grandparents, and they're facing these pressures. And sometimes under all these pressures, they begin to lose hope. And it's really tough because when you see a young person who feels hopeless, they feel like they're the only one that's going through that pressure. Yeah. And it's not true. Interesting story. I was in a youth summit in the Midwest, and I was working with these students. And we were talking about the pressures of life and things like that. And this little short, I think she was maybe a 10th grade black girl, perfect hair and all this kind of stuff. She had everything together. She was a cheerleader. And she said, my parents are going through a divorce and I really don't know what to do. And these big old crocodile tears just started pouring down her face. And this big old probably like 6 foot white kid, scruffy little beard. He was a senior. He stood up and he said, "My parents went through a divorce last year. I know how you feel."
Yeah.
And he went over and he hugged her. And that's what that whole leadership was about. That little whole leadership session was about. Yes, we have pressures, but we don't talk about those pressures. We try to talk to adults, but they're too busy. We try to talk to our parents, but they're in the midst of it. So they can't get through it. Whatever that pressure is, they just don't know how to connect with it. So teaching students how to deal with these pressures with one another in a safe way helps them connect with each other in a different way. So student pressure is the biggest thing that students are facing, especially post-COVID.
You hit something earlier too, and I think we could do a better job of amplifying this. And I've said something similar to my kids recently, but your situation right now is not going to be the situation in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be the situation 2 years from now. I had a young lady that came to work with us at my gym, and she was kind of just trying to figure out life. She leaned in on me and the wife and just had some questions about, I'm at this crossroads, I need to do this. But she said something one time about the start influences. Her parents said, obviously, we want that. But she made the comment, she goes, I'm at the age where I love my dad, but I also learned that my dad's way it's not always the way that I want to do things. And I'm at the age where I already respected him. He has to already respect me now too, right? So,
Yes.
and I tell a lot of folks that when you get into this split home thing, is a lot of times it lets me. I know that coming from that, and I know my dad growing up, being in those situations like that, I know that it really helped me realize what I wanted to be able to do for my kids. And I knew how important that when I finally got to that point of, okay, I'm going to be a dad, is like, I gotta be a dad.
Yeah.
And I have to really take all of those lessons that I learned and apply those now. Um, and I share with them. And I communicate with my daughter is in middle school. And middle school for me was hard. It was in 86. I'm older. But in 86, my grandmother did suicide. And I was coming out of sixth grade. And I found her. And I lived through that moment. And then I go into middle school. And growing up here is, there was, in my county that I grew up in, there was one middle school and one high school. So every kid in that community gets in one place. It was so big that I never saw any of my friends that I had from elementary school.
Wow.
And so I just lost. I was dealing. I had sixth grade that ended, dealing with stuff at home. All those little uncertainties, and then just living a little bit of chaos through family and all the other things that was that I thought was the normal, right? And I thought that the way I was living was normal. When I got to school, I was just trying to find. I went to middle school looking for a new identity. I was looking for something to help alleviate, and I didn't find it. And now I have these conversations with my daughter. I really overshare with her, like, this is what it was like for me, and this is how I struggled. And I use that, like, we try to do everything we can to prop you up for success, and making sure your physical health, your mental health, and all those things are good. But not every kid. There's more kids like me that you're going to come across that need that little lift, and they need that power positivity that I'm giving you to give to them.
Right.
But it was hard, Brandon, like, just going into that. But I would also tell kids, and saying like that message you give them, is I say, if you have those characteristics, if you follow that awareness, respect, and the character, if you follow Brandon's art, it's going to be okay. And you're going to find a place of where you're happy, and life is going to be good, and all those things that folks that you don't see when you're right here facing this event that you're in now.
For sure. And when it comes to the art for me, I think about, I'm a big basketball fan. I think about Steph Curry shooting the ball, and he shoots the ball really, 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 really high so that the
Yeah.
ball just goes right into the basket. Now, LeBron is my favorite player. He's the GOAT. I know that's a
Damn.
controversial statement for
Yes,
sure.
sir.
But I love Steph Curry's shot, and he has that arc, right?
Yeah.
And I think about the arc as how I ran my life. I tried my best, starting from where I started in life. I tried my best to have good awareness, good self-respect, good character, so that when I have bad days, even if I fall a little bit, I will never go back to where I started. And I'm just living my life, just going up that arc. And that's what I try to let students know, like, hey, yes, you got pressures. Yes, you got situations, but you also have a choice.
Yeah.
You also have a choice. I tell my students when I'm traveling around, hey, make sure you go for a walk when you're upset. How much water have you drink today? When's the last time you journaled? Do you do any kind of quiet meditations or any type of thinking about your thoughts? Like, think about what you're thinking about is what one of my mentors used to tell me all the time.
Yeah.
I tell them these things because they're closer to adulthood than they are usually in childhood, even though that they're there. It's like, hey man, you're gonna be a child for a couple of couple more years, and then you're out in the real world with the rest of us. And you have to learn how to think. You have to learn how to learn. Really, I know when I worked with my football students years ago, I would tell them, listen, learn, and grow. That's the only thing that you have to know. Listen, learn, and grow. And now I'm understanding why students are where they are in life is because they don't have that format. They don't have that format of that awareness saying like, oh, I gotta always continually be growing.
A lot of, I think, too, a lot of kids, and I really push my kids into this, don't know how to communicate. They're,
They're not supposed to.
yeah,
They're kids.
they're kids.
I know
Yep.
some adults who don't know how to communicate.
That's what you see is it carries over into adulthood. Is
Right.
they struggle with being able just to express their emotions. And I think when you're like I think with you and I'm an over communicator, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna over tell you what's going on. And coaching athletics sometimes is kids they don't know how to say, "Coach, I need help." Coach, I don't understand. They're just trying to go through the motions, and I've gotten better about. I grabbed a kid up one day and I was like, hey, we're doing this, this, and this on the baseball field. He goes, and I watched him, and it was like he left his body and zoned out that far on me, And I was like, hey, come here.
Mm-hmm.
And I drew it out on the ground. And when I started drawing X's, I'm like, you're right here. And then when this happens, I need you to be right here. And if we do this, he's like, got it. I just learned he's a visual learner. As soon as I figured out how he needed to be talked to, and we do a poor job at that. We try to talk to everyone. So I told you my kids are raising me is I went and got communication. I did more disc work. I've done a bunch of just things that really helped me learn how to communicate to people the way they need to be communicated, not how I want to talk to them. Right. So that's helpful too, is us recognizing when how we can get better and how we deliver to our kids.
And it's funny because you said students don't know how to communicate, and I quickly was like, they're kids. They
Yeah.
shouldn't know, right? But the truth is this, though. They communicate with each other all the time.
Yeah.
Text messaging, Instagram, Facebook. Or they don't use Facebook. They use Snapchat and
Yeah.
TikTok and toe tag and all this other. They know how to communicate with each other, right? And I think that's the thing. Like, hey, you guys are already communicating with each other. Tell the truth now.
Yeah.
Share your truth. Be honest about it. And then with these characteristics, with this awareness, with this respect for yourself, now you're able to say, hey, this is how I feel, and this is why I feel this way. You know, and of course, I usually run everything I do when it comes to speaking engagements or speaking topics. I run it by my kids, and my kids will be like, no, that's not true. Like, well, that's dumb, like, that's stupid, or like, oh, that could work, because I want to get that real time like feel. But then, when I'm out on the road or if I'm here locally at one of the high schools or the middle schools, I let these students know, like, hey, you can talk to me. I won't judge you. And
Yeah.
they'll be like, oh, okay, well, this is what it really is. Like, this is how I really feel. And I usually tell them, okay, I understand how you feel, but this is the result of that feeling. Because I've been through it, or my brother's been through it, or coach has been through it. Like, and then they're able to see it almost like you're drawing in the sand. Uh, which is, I think Jesus did that. Didn't he draw something in the sand? Jesus,
Yeah.
just telling everybody's business, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, drawing in the sand. But that's how we have to connect. That's how we have to connect, and that lets them know that they can trust us. That builds that connection and awareness. But also, it lets them know that they're not alone. They're not alone.
I when I put my content out, I do the same thing. I approach everything from humor. I enjoy making people laugh, and I enjoy just be poking a little bit of fun at my situation of what got growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Because I survived it, and I'm on the backside of it, and I get to use it as just always positivity. But
Right.
my grandfather was arrested for DUI on a tractor. Right. So
Yeah.
I put that post down. I don't know if you saw it, but because I try to really approach it because when do like, hang on here, man, what did he got buttons on? Well, I went to put it out because when I speak, there's a part there. At some point now, I'm going to speak in front of my kids' friends and their parents, and then people that know us, and my kids have known all from the rawness of what it was like growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to share their stories with them as they've gotten older. And before I put that post down, I sat down and told them the story. And I was like, if you guys think that this is going to affect you negatively, let me know and I won't put it out. Or if you get questions, they go, yeah, no one knows. That's you. We ain't worried about that. You put out whatever you want to, but they thank me for telling them.
Right.
Um, just because I can tell you when that happened, um, that was hard going to school because the kids wanted to talk to me about it, and they poked a little bit of fun, and
Yeah.
it was not the most pleasant thing for me as a kid to deal with. Now I laugh about it, but it was over.
I'm learning now in some situations, I have to tell students how to play. I have to teach them how to play. Like, hey, uh, for example, I had a kid who was getting bullied, right? And he was like, how do I stop these bullies? And I was like, well, what are they saying to you? He's like, they're calling me this and they're calling me that. I said, next time they call you this and that, laugh. Like, laugh. They're like, oh, I am short, or oh, you have messed up teeth, right? And he was like, okay. So then he laughed. He came back to me a couple days later. He's like, I laughed it off. I was like, well, what did they do? He said they just started making more jokes. After I laughed about it, they started making jokes on other people. I said,
Yeah.
okay, now they're trying to be your friend. He's like, really? I was like, yeah, they're trying to be your friend. But you can't joke back on them yet. Like, you can't say nothing yet.
Yep.
He said, okay. I said, but listen, when it gets to something that they say that is serious, that hurts your feelings, you let them know, like, hey, bro, like, that's real. Like, that's real serious. That's a serious situation. Don't joke about that.
Yeah.
Because now we're setting boundaries, but also we're letting them know, like, hey, I'll laugh with you, but not about this.
That. Yeah.
Right? But do it in your own way, but it's a form of communication. They communicate all the time. I make jokes all the time.
No.
And I tell people, like, hey, if it starts hurting, let me know. And I'll let you know when you start hurting me. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's true. We're human. We all have feelings and emotions, but a lot of times students will isolate themselves, I will say, and adults too, isolate themselves because they think that the joke is a separation when it's really just trying to bridge the gap. Usually people who joke, they have insecurities. So I've had to teach this moment to the student, like, hey, no, they're trying to be your friend. You just have to let
And
them know where the line is.
a lot of adults that you and I will encounter never had that advice growing up, and they don't know how to tell their kids how to handle that.
Yeah.
Parenting is hard, man. It is. Kids with cell phones, right? And I had to tell my kids the other day, I'm like, listen, y'all have the power of the world in your hands at 13, 14 years old. And when y'all take a picture and you decide you're gonna send a picture to your friends, it's like this. I said back in my day, I had to send it off for 2 weeks to be developed. There was a lot of things changed in the time it took for me to get a picture back. And after it came back, it still came to me, and I was like, oh, you know what? My eyes are closed. I'd rip it up and throw it away. And then it would take another 2 weeks for me to get a picture that I could send to someone. I'm like, you guys is in seconds. You have communicated, sent pictures, you've uploaded something to the internet, and technology is so different now. But just in dealing with that, but like the emotional side and just those little conversational nuggets that you're teaching is a lot of parents didn't get that when they were
I
growing
didn't
up.
get it. I had to learn it on my own, and now I'm able to teach it to others for sure. But that's the life that they're in. That's the situation that they live in, and we have to kind of just like adapt with it. We have to be like, hey, let's get it, let's go, let's move. This is how you deal with it quicker. So, but it's one of those things.
You um you are going to kick off this school year and you've already got some plans laid out.
Yes.
You probably got some room on your schedule. You have your McCall's group on Instagram. How can people and that's something that I think is a great place for people in the world. You're on Instagram and you're very active in your content. Yes, you're right. I do kind of hold you accountable to that because I look forward to it.
Yes.
If you're not on there, I'm on your butt about it. But
Yes.
you've got. I want to cover a couple things here as we're wrapping up. First off, is how can people follow you on Instagram and get inside of that McCall's group that you have?
So my Instagram is McCall_speaks, which is really awesome. And it's more so geared to middle and high school students who have Instagram as just a positive outlook on Instagram for students to have. So basically, when I come to your school and I do a speech, you get little nuggets of that speech throughout the entire school year. Which is great. Awesome. Now the McCallers group that I have kind of just like my journey on personal growth and development up there, but also I'm trying to infuse some things for other students to take part in as well. The issue that I'm facing right now is, well, the opportunity I'm facing right now is school is right now about to start.
Yeah.
Next week I'll be in Washington D.C. and I'll be talking to all of Job Corp's leaders and about 300 students, right? Which is going to be awesome. And I really want to hear what students are dealing with in their personal development walk, so I'm able to guide them through there. What I've realized throughout all of the social media followers that I have the opportunity to get nuggets from is a lot of times we will be selling what people don't want to buy. We'll be sharing what people don't want to hear. And I don't want to be just spewing out information for students that's not connecting with them. And I want to hear from them. And what I started noticing was more people were interested in my life than taking benefits in their own lives. So I'm gearing to like getting back on the grind in that format. But I want to, my heart honestly is for the students. It's building family. I posted a family picture and I got almost like 500 likes or something like that. Just me, my kids, and my wife. Like, and there was 500, and I'm like, oh, students want to see family. Duh, like, maybe if you don't have a family or if you do have a family, they just want to see family. And I was like, okay, cool. That's a nugget. All right, how do you build yourself in this family? So like that's what it's all about there. That McCallers link, I'll be posting up next week for more students to get into. And I want to give you guys some dope some dope context and and information that you're able to use, not just stuff that you're gonna be like, oh, that's not for me. That doesn't work for me. I want you guys to go, okay, let's get it. Let's go. So,
I think that's the cool part is you're going to go on what I would call a tour this year, and
yes.
you're only going to reach a fraction. We're talking the drip in the bucket of the people that need to hear your message, and the more folks that we can push into your group that can hear these messages that you put out every day, and that light and that beacon of hope, and knowing how passionate you are about this mission that you're on. And then you have your website where folks can book, or can connect directly with you as well. What is
Yes.
that?
That is McCall Motivation at .com, McCallmotivation.com. McCallmotivation.com has all the information about the ARC and what we do and how we do it. Also has the private sessions that I do called Empowering Mind that I do with the youth, almost like growth and development leadership sessions. We also do camps every summer with football, which we had to cancel this year. Oh man, I was so bummed out about that. Vacation Bible schools were just going at the same time, so we couldn't compete, which is great as well. But also you can reach out to me at teentruth.net. Teentruth.net. They do more of the social and emotional awareness part of my speaking that I do, which is awesome. They're amazing. A big shout out to teentruth.net. And that's usually how you can reach out to me. Instagram is probably the best way. I love Instagram. I'm working on my TikTok.
It's not a VA or it's not an admin. It's Brandon. You text. This is that guy.
It's just me. It's just me. And it's amazing. It's funny because when I talk to superintendents and I talk to admin and things like that, they're able to take off their masks too and show who they really are. And I'm like, yo, the kids want to see this. And they're like, no. I'm like, no, you're letting them know that you're human too. So, either way, it's a blessing. And I'm just glad to share my piece and share my little nuggets of life to the next generation.
You are absolutely, and I'm going to close you with this. And when you say, you said it, and but I want to explain to you my perspective on why. And when you share that picture with your family and you share that everyday behind the scenes of life is they connect that with your story, and you are absolutely as real as they. You're walking through a baseball field while the track kids are practicing, and they're getting ready to do a foot race, and you're like, all right, y'all ready? Let's go. And you foot race these kids like boom. Um, and and along with that is when you share this story of where you come from is you become this picture of your success. And when I say success links clues is you become that ultimate beacon and light. Folks are looking at you, and you're the ultimate hope dealer for the kids that see that. And if you can do it, and if I can do it, then we can really get people headed in the right direction where they can as well.
Yeah.
Dude, this is episode 1 for Jeff and Brandon. There will be multiple of these because we're gonna continue this conversation because I'm gonna uncover things that I feel like the world's gonna need to hear that involves us, and you're gonna do the same thing, and we're gonna keep working on projects, stuff that you and I have talked about. But folks, in the meantime, make sure you go to McCall's _speaks on Instagram. Make sure you jump in that group if you're just get in there because it's one message you're going to find that power positivity surrounding around you inside there. So thank you. I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you.
Glad I love supporting your mission and what you're doing and amplifying everything that you do, my brother. I'm excited for the ARC tour. Which will be coming out 2025. Brandon McCall speaks art tour, and there will probably be an opportunity for me to open up an MC for you just to get my opening down in person for you one time.
Let's
so
go.
we can
Let's go.
appreciate it, brother. Thank you, man.
Hey, I appreciate you. Thank you.